Back on the SportsMax zone, Frank Lampard's stay as manager of Chelsea has lasted only 18 months. Chelsea announcing the 42-year-old sacking on Monday with the club ninth in the Premier League table. The news came only a day after the Blues won 3-1 against Luton in the FA Cup. In a statement, the club said, "This has been a very difficult decision and not one the owner and the board have taken lightly. We are grateful to Frank for what he has achieved in his time as head coach of the club. However, recent results and performances have not met the club's expectations, leaving the club mid-table without any clear path to sustained improvement. There can never be a good time to part ways with a club legend such as Frank, but after lengthy deliberation and consideration, it was decided a change is needed now to give the club time to improve performances and results this season." Now, the Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich has said Lampard's status as an important icon of the club remains undiminished. Chelsea are expected to announce recently sacked Paris Saint-Germain coach Thomas Tuchel as their new coach ahead of Wednesday's EPL clash with Wolves. Wayne and Moran, not an entirely shocking development here coming from Stamford Bridge, but a lot has been said since we woke up this morning about Frankie Lampard and Chelsea.
Definitely sad to see him go, but we know it was in the making. He has the worst points per game as a manager, as you know, people calculate stats for every single possible thing that they can. I feel like Thomas Tuchel, though I'm not too comfortable with him stepping in for Frankie Lampard, he would have the same team to try to figure out how he's going to manage them and of course get a result. And I feel like moving from Lampard to Thomas Tuchel is not a good move.
Listen, this is
like
madness.
it's
It's panic. I mean, listen, he's 5 points away from the fourth position. He's pretty close, right? If Arteta from Chelsea can still be coaching
from Arsenal,
sorry, can be coaching
Don't make those mistakes,
in this Premier League, then I can't understand why Lampard is not coaching. Listen, 18 months, a pretty young coach at this level, and this iconic figure, almost colossal figure at Chelsea over the years as a player, for them to treat him like that, I think it's poor. Maybe Abramovich wanted back his £200 million that he gave him to spend, and he said he spent all that money, and he gave you so much money, and this is what he produced. It's still early enough in the season for them to come back and regain their position. I think it's a panic move, and it's very disrespectful to him. So therefore, it has tarnished his whole being at Chelsea. Or can he say it's undiminished? It's going to be diminished because there's a lot of bitterness and hurt there. They should have at least gave him to the end of the season and to say, okay, we're going to give it a full season for you to move forward. If it doesn't work out, we move on. I think that it's most disrespectful, it's hurt, and this is how it is in professional sport, nevertheless. Yeah. But again, if Arteta at Arsenal can still be in the league, then Lampard should have been at least stayed for the rest of the season.
It just shows how important you have to get results. It doesn't matter who you are.
Well, let's now get the thoughts of our European football expert, Simon Evans. Simon, welcome to the SportsMax zone. Mariah says she understands the decision. Wayne is livid. He thinks that Frankie Lampard has been very badly treated. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got some sympathy with what Wayne's saying there, actually. And you know, it's hard not to have the feeling that Chelsea have used Frank Lampard a little bit here, because he came in, Chelsea had that transfer ban, let's remember. They weren't allowed to sign any players, and he spent last year with playing young players, players who've been out on loan, bringing in players from the reserve teams and the youth teams. We saw some of them do really well, Mason Mount, Tabby Abrams, and so on. And people were saying he's laying down a foundation. And then as soon as the transfer ban gets lifted, the club go out and buy these players for him. Let's get that straight as well, because we still think, a lot of us, that the managers are the ones who go out and sign these players. But in a lot of clubs, and Chelsea's certainly one of them, it's not the managers who sign these players, not the coach who goes and gets them. He wanted players, by all accounts, Frank Lampard, who were Premier League ready, who'd had experience in the Premier League, to add to that young base he had to his side. And they brought in a lot of players from the continent who need time to settle in. So he's been set up to fail, I think, this year. And you know, if they really believed that this was a long-term project, and they always use these kind of words like project, then he should certainly have been around till the end of this season. But, you know, if this standard was applied exactly as Wayne's saying about Arteta, but a few weeks ago, people were saying it about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, weren't they? And look where Manchester United are now.
All right, to look closely at what the club said in its statement today, I want to focus on the part that they mentioned. Recent results and performances have not met the club's expectations, and leaving the club mid-table without any clear path to sustained improvement. So I think that is the the critical area of their displeasure with Frankie Lampard's performance. The performance is declining, and no end in sight to the downward trend.
Yeah, I mean that comes down. That is quite damning language to use. Really, you're right to highlight that, because if they're saying there's no path there, what's been going on behind the scenes, that suggests that they don't see the work he's doing away from the results as bearing any fruit or having any hope. But I just think that, you know, and there's been a few reports today in English newspapers suggesting that they were already looking at replacement in the summer. I think he was the perfect manager for them to bring in the young players, and then they wanted to move on some big name to deal with all the European players they brought in. And he really does look to me like they've used him.
Yeah. But do you think that part of it, though, Simon, would be that they don't trust his acumen as a coach? Because he's yet to prove himself as a coach. He was with Derby before getting the Chelsea job. So he has no resume at the moment to qualify or to suggest that he is a solid coach.
Well, this is another strange thing about the football business, isn't it? You're absolutely right. He had, a short time at Derby County, really. He was showing some progress and promise, but he didn't take Derby County to their goals either before he went to Chelsea. He was never going to say no to Chelsea. But if you looked at it really in terms of any other business, would you appoint someone to such a crucial role in your company who's had such little experience of it? No, you wouldn't. And likewise, looking at it from Frank Lampard's point of view, would you leap into such a big hot seat after such a short time, a year and a bit, of being a manager at a lower level? None of it makes sense, really. And this is what happens to football clubs when they're not particularly well run. Chelsea, on the other hand, will say, we've always changed managers quickly. Roman Abramovich and his team there have never had patience with managers. They've been very ruthless. They've got rid of people after they've won the title and had a bad start to a season. Carlo Ancelotti, we can think of. Mourinho, I'm sure, could tell you stories about his time there, and many other managers, and they've won things. Antonio Conte, did it work out at Chelsea? No, it didn't, but they won the league. They won the league once, and that's enough for them.
Simon, I feel like the biggest questions for the Chelsea fans is Thomas Tuchel a good replacement? And, what will he be required to do to get away?
Well, it's an interesting one because, he's come there from Paris Saint-Germain, where he took them to the Champions League final, and then he gets sacked after a few months of the next season. But of course, that is an extremely difficult job, obviously, at Paris Saint-Germain. With the stars they've got and the money they've spent for Mbappe and Neymar in attack, your job is basically to provide a team that will provide service to those two. And they're the stars, they're the dominant figures at that club. Very difficult if you're expected to win the French league and you get no credit for it. So you've got to win the Champions League to have achieved something, and that's obviously very difficult to do. And he nearly did it last year. But I think what Chelsea will be looking to more is the Thomas Tuchel we saw earlier in his career at Dortmund, where they were playing that kind of dynamic German football, high-pressing, high-energy football, that presumably with the Bundesliga signings that they've made, the players like Timo Werner and so on, and Kai Havertz, that they want to get into that way of playing football. So we'll see. Can he do that? Is this Chelsea team set up for that kind of high-energy style? I have my doubts, to be honest, when you look at their midfield, but let's see what he can do. It may take him some time, and it may take some more transfer market activity.
All right, Simon, you made mention about, Frank Lampard didn't get Derby what they wanted. However, he was one game away from getting them into the Premier League, right? So he took them all the way almost, and it was felt that he would have taken them across the threshold. It didn't happen, and therefore, immediately the following year, he went to Chelsea. It's almost like he was fast-tracked into management at that level. While the black players now, in England and all over the world, complained so much about the fact that they have never been given even an interview, to get into management and to show their skill set and so on. Was it surprising that Frank Lampard was so fast-tracked, and is it a surprise that he has been let go already, considering the fact that they really had plans for him moving forward?
No, you make a good point there, and it is something that I think can annoy people, managers of different backgrounds working at different levels, when they see someone just fly through like that, without having really proved themselves. And I don't think it's good for the managers themselves. What's Frank Lampard going to do now? he's probably going to have to go back to that level of Derby County or somewhere, that kind of level, and try and prove himself. Wayne Rooney's got that job now. He's just starting off on the same path. Well, good. I hope Wayne Rooney spends 3 or 4 years at that level with Derby County or other clubs at that level and builds himself up before he gets a chance at a big job. I think that's the way it should be for everyone. And you're absolutely fair to bring up that situation with players from black backgrounds and so on, because those players haven't been fast-tracked, really. We haven't seen many opportunities for the likes of John Barnes. Paul Ince had a few opportunities, but those players don't seem to get fast-tracked as much. And I think there needs to be a much more professional approach throughout football to giving people opportunities. We see Steven Gerrard, for example, of Liverpool. The Liverpool job hasn't come up and it's not on the horizon in the near future. So he's got time in Scotland at Rangers to learn his job and develop. And I have no doubt that Gerrard will be a prime contender for the Liverpool.
Audio issues there with Simon. We hope we can link with him again, because we're just about, Wayne and Mariah, to talk to him about what happened yesterday in the FA Cup 4th round fixture between Man United and Liverpool.
What is happening with Liverpool? I feel like they lack so much confidence. They're not the Liverpool that I'm used to seeing. And I mean, yes, I was on a break, but I was keeping up, and I felt it for Liverpool on the whole. You can tell, of course, that Jurgen Klopp, he lacks confidence, and it's infiltrating into the players, so much so that the opposition doesn't fear Liverpool anymore.
Well, go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, I'm just saying the fact is that they've been badly hit by injuries. So, you know, a lot of the key players that took Liverpool to the UEFA Champions League title 2 seasons ago and the Premier League last year are not in the current setup. Key players, I might add. And even in the past couple of months, a player like Jota, who has injected so much quality into the Liverpool setup, he is out injured at the moment. So they are having problems from that standpoint. But you made the point, that's a good point, Mariah, because there are quality players still there, but somehow not performing. Firmino,
Mo Salah,
Mane and Salah haven't been getting the goals, which we are accustomed to seeing them get.
Exactly, which is why I was happy when Mo Salah found the back of the net in this match, at least, because, you know, it's just something positive to pull for Liverpool. Win?
Listen, guys, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, there's been talk going on behind the scenes about Mohamed Salah, looking to leave Liverpool. He felt unappreciated. I mean, Sadio Mane, looking about he wants to go into play in the Spanish league. I mean, there's so much talk about, almost like some ego is coming to play now. They won the Champions League, they won the EPL, and therefore everybody's looking respect. And therefore, they have been, initially, once they moved away at one stage, I said this was it. They're going to win the EPL. Yeah. Manchester United started playing well and starting to pressure on them now. See, the Liverpool, I think, is down in 4th position at the moment, an unfamiliar position in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. So therefore, there has been talk going on behind the scenes that all is not well within the team. And because of that, we have seen it on the pitch now. No confidence, no happiness. It doesn't appear as if the guys, they love each other and like each other anymore. It's almost like everybody's tense and everybody's upset. So I'm not surprised.
Manchester United, though, they're sending a message.
I told George that from the beginning that Manchester United is playing the most consistent football. And he says that because of their defensive, the right back, they're not going to do well and they can't win. I said,
that's his team, though, Wayne.
I don't remember George saying what you just said.
He said that they can't win the EPL if they don't fix up the back. And I said, George, they had 1 point away from being at the top. Or can you say that they were in 2nd position, pretty close to Liverpool? And they had games in hand.
Or for viewers, we have some comments or some views to get from you later on in the show as we go to break. Do you agree with Chelsea's decision to sack Frank Lampard as head coach? Send us a voice note to be played on the show later today. And we'll be very, very anxious to hear what you've got to say on this. Back with more after the break.